Quest. Well, today my quest is joy. So the stillness is done, and I'm going to be silly and goofy and ask you to be silly and goofy with me. Are you into playing that way? There's a song written by Janice Stanfield, one of my favorite singers. And Laura is every bit as good as her, but she has a song called Enjoy the Ride. And it goes like this. Life is a fast train with hills and valleys, with streets and alleys and countryside. You never know just how far you're going, but the trick is to learn to enjoy the ride. Who is enjoying the ride of Christmas? Who is truly enjoying the ride of life itself with its ups and its downs and everything in between? It is something to enjoy, yes? And sometimes we get on this fast train, and I know for myself, I'll own it, I get on the fast train of Christmas. And sometimes Christmas doesn't begin until about 9:30 on Christmas Eve night when I can go, and I look at all the joy that I have missed. And every year I have to remind myself to unplug the Christmas machine. And to unplug the neener machine that's in my head that's all about one more task. And Christmas easily can become one more thing to check off of my checklist. It's something I do, and it's something I've worked on. And I tell you, this has been the most joyous year, the most peaceful year. And I don't know what changed, but something had to change within me for it to change externally. Yes? If you want Christmas to be different, if you want life to be different, something's got to change internally first. So whatever I did, unconsciously or subconsciously or consciously, I'm grateful because it's been a very joyous Christmas. But it's because I made room for joy. We have to make room for joy. All the Advent season, we've had an empty stable up here. That has been extremely intentional. It is because we are preparing the room. We began our Advent journey with singing, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord." We had to prepare the way for peace, for hope, for love, and today joy. We had to make room. It'll be filled tomorrow night with a beautiful presentation. I hope you take part. We have a bunch of empty chairs up here. You're probably wondering, where's the choir? They'll be singing tomorrow night. But we are preparing the room of the sanctuary, the room of our consciousness, the room of our heart, the room for the joy that they will share beautifully, I'm trusting, tomorrow night. We have a bunch of stools up here where our children will be sitting, our angelic children all dressed in white. We had to prepare the room, and we had to make room for them. We are being asked in this holiday season to clear the cobwebs of our limited thinking, of any negative thoughts that we have held in mind and heart, in being, or in habit, to make room for the experience of joy. You know, I went and looked about all the books that are written about joy, and there's a lot of them out there. There's the ones that you've all heard of. It's The Joy of Cooking, The Joy of Sex. We've all seen that, right? Well, there are hundreds and hundreds more books about joy. Here are some of the ones I found. The Joy of Baking, The Joy of Clean Eating, The Joy of Painting, The Joy of Cars, The Joy of Trucks, The Joy of Landscaping. And one that I found that actually is a book that I had a real tough time getting my head around, but the accountants in the room were really jumping up and down about this one. The Joy of Statistics. Really, there's a book called The Joy of Statistics. I'll have to work on that one. There was also The Joy of Music, Connecting, and my personal favorite, The Joy of Socks. There's an actual book called The Joy of Socks. Is it possible to have joy in the most insignificant little things of life, like a pair of socks? Well, I know it is. Because let me tell you, as I shared with the first service, one of my favorite, most joyful times at Christmas is opening up the package that I know is that new pair of flannel boxer shorts. I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I get the new boxers, yes. My wife is in the first service, and she went running out of the door because she said she's got a few more hours to go get the boxer shorts she hadn't picked up yet. If there can be joy in socks and in the joy of shoes, joy in boxer shorts, there can be joy in every moment of life. Yes? It is a moment-to-moment decision to bring joy no matter what is happening. See, it's clear a distinction between happiness and joy, and we always need to remember that. Happiness and joy are two different things. Happiness is circumstantial. I will be happy when this happens. I will be happy when I open the new boxer shorts, when I get the new socks, when I get the new car. I will be happy when you show up the way you're supposed to show up, as according to the map that is in my mind. That's happiness. Joy is relational. It is not circumstantial. Joy is relational to the presence of God that is me. The Christ that is me, the light, the wonderful expression of goodness of God, of love, peace, hope, and joy that is me, regardless of what's happening out here. I believe the man that we celebrate at this holiday season, that was one of his main messages. Let them do whatever they want out here. I'm going to find joy. And I believe he was a joyful being. We have this picture of Jesus, that he is this somber, quiet, brooding, prayerful guy. And that probably was part of his makeup. I believe it was. But let me tell you, I'm grateful for the minister that introduced me to the person who had emotions and feelings, and he cried, he was afraid, he was angry, but he also was like a small child of God, and he knew how to laugh. We've all seen this picture, right? The laughing Jesus. This is what I want to birth at Christmas. This is who I want to be at Christmas, full of life, full of joy, full of enthusiasm, full of laughter, goofiness, silliness. And we forget to play, don't we? I believe he knew how to play. He said if we're going to enter the kingdom of heaven, we must become like a child. Yes? I'm going to invite you to be childlike with me today. You know, it's real funny, that picture, I told this story 2 years ago, was on the middle school wall, the Uniteens wall, downstairs. Sat there for months and months and months, and we pulled it off the wall to do a lesson. Come to find out that the whole time that picture was on the wall, the junior high kids thought it was a picture of Bob Marley. They were so excited to find out that they didn't have Bob Marley on the Sunday school room. They thought, oh my gosh, Susie is so cool. She's got Bob Marley up there. I believe Bob Marley would have found that funny, and I believe Jesus would have found that funny as well. Yes? All right, so what did that man teach? That man full of joy. What did he teach? He didn't write any joy of books, but I believe he could have. And so I examined his teachings, top to bottom, for the talk today, and looked at the joy of books that maybe he could have written. First and foremost, the foundation of his entire ministry was the joy of forgiveness. Can there be joy in forgiveness? We've all had those moments where it's like, I know I really need to let this go. I need to let go of that resentment. It doesn't feel like joy, does it? It feels like tension and stress. But I believe he understood and knew at the depth of who he was that there was a greater expression of joy, of enthusiasm, of peace, and of joy that was available when we released our souvenirs of hell. He beat a dead horse. You know, in his ministry, one thing, he was consistent. And I believe the consistency of his message was a testimony to the joy he got in sharing the wealth of his information. One of my favorite stories is when he's with the woman caught in adultery. And there's all those guys and their judgment and their self-righteousness with stones that are ready to stone the woman. And he comes in there, and I'll paraphrase, says, hey, dudes, back off. Any of you here, sitting here who have no problems, have no mistakes in your life, have never fallen down, or have no sin, and the only sin that we teach in Unity is a belief that you are separate from God and separate from others. Anybody, if you're perfect without a stain and never made a mistake, you go ahead and throw the stone. I can hear the thud. I can hear the thud of the stones as they hit the ground. And I believe there was a greater joy available to Jesus, to those people, and to that woman, for the planet, because of a willingness to let go of the judgment and the unforgiveness. How often should we do that? Just at Christmas? Should we do it all the time? 7 times 70 is what he told us. 7 metaphysically simply means as long as it takes. It is completion. You forgive until there's no more need to forgive anymore. Can there be joy in that? I believe that the greatest joy will be in the releasing of grounding ourselves to the human condition, which was what unforgiveness does. And when we can release those bonds and those chains that hold us to the human relationships, we elevate the vibration at which we are operating. And there is joy in that. There is goodness and peace and harmony. He said when you approach the altar, if you've got a problem with your brother, go away. Leave the altar and go take care of business with your brother. And I believe it's because he understood and know you don't have access to God when you were grounding yourself to that resentment, to that anger and that pain. We carry, C.S. Lewis, I've talked about this before, we carry around stones. Not just judgments of others, but judgments of ourselves. And they are souvenirs of hell. this Christmas, we have to make room. We have to make room for a greater awareness of Christ's light and energy by releasing those stones, putting them down, making that phone call, having that difficult conversation, and saying, I will find love and I will find peace here because I know that I want to experience God with you. We haven't felt it yet, but we're going to get there, and we're going to get there together. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And this greatest teaching, I believe, in the midst of the human experience of pain, the crucifixion. Forgive them. Forgive them. They don't know what they are doing. Do I believe that spiritually there was a sense of joy in that? I absolutely do. Because he understood he was not of this world. He was of a different place. And I believe that whole event happened. He wasn't there because he was in the place of heaven on earth. Forgive them. Forgiveness will bring you greater joy. So, he could have written the book of forgiveness, the joy of forgiveness. How about the joy of faith and positive thinking? I believe that the man that we celebrate, the life that we celebrate at Christmas, was the most positive thinker to walk the face of the planet. He understood faith. What did he tell us? Every time somebody was healed in his presence, what did he say? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Your faith made you whole. Your belief in the healing made you whole. And he deflected that energy every single time. He said, when you have sufficient faith, there is no problem that cannot be overcome. He said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you will say to that mountain, move, and it will move. He didn't mean literal mountains. We're not going to move mountains. He meant the obstacles that are in your life that are keeping you from having that full expression of heaven on earth. Yes? We have a mystic that used to be a YOUer in this church. I love her, Kristen Smith. And we did this a couple of years ago. We're going to do it again because I believe we can move mountains with the faith of a mustard seed. I want you all to stand up with me. And I want you to picture in front of you right now some obstacle that is in your life, something that is blocking you from having the full expression of Christmas, the full expression of the Christed light that you are. And I want you to take your hands, put them on your hips, and find some kind of joy in the bottom of that. And I want you to lean back like this, and I want you to go, ha 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 ha. You know, there's a couple guys in the back that lock the doors. They're trying to get out. The reality is that mountain has no more power than your ability to just laugh. To laugh in the face of the obstacle and know it is nothing trying to be something. Whether it be your health, whether it be your bank account, whether it be a relationship, it is nothing trying to be something. We don't give it power. We draw the power back. Take your power back. One more time, put your hands on your hip and laugh in the face of whatever is in front of you. It is nothing. As you say, ha ha ha. Please be seated. He told us with God all things are possible. He said the things which are impossible with men are possible with God. My wife does a paraphrase on that. She says, what is impossible with men is possible with women. You know, and I'm a smart enough man to not argue with her because I believe that is true. You know, could there be faith? Oftentimes at Christmas, there are a lot of us in the room right now that are in a place of not knowing. I don't know how to get rid of that obstacle. I don't know where the next job is coming or the next relationship is coming from. We don't like not knowing. Humanly, we don't like the ability to not control, right? Am I the only one? We like to control life, and that place of not knowing can be the most joyful place in the world. How do I know that? Well, let me tell you, we got an angel in our midst that lives it, who proves it, is a living testimony to having joy in not knowing. Every day, she doesn't know how she's going to get from point A to point B. She doesn't have a ride. She doesn't have a car. Every day, she gets from point A to point B, and she does it in bliss. Every day, she doesn't know, what house am I going to be sleeping in tonight? Where am I going to be tonight? Whose house do I get to sleep in tonight? And playground. And let me tell you, this person is the epitome of joy in our midst. And there isn't a person sitting here today that probably hasn't been touched by the angelic presence of Sonia Osillo. And I find myself watching her in the midst of my Christmas machine. How am I going to get all these presents bought? How am I going to do it perfectly? How am I going to do it right? And she goes, and I also see her, and she goes, where are you going to be tonight? I don't know, but I'm happy. And she lives in bliss, and guess what? She's taken care of just the way Jesus was. Jesus never was wanting for a place to stay, a transportation from one place to the other, and people to share the journey with. She is a living testimony of what we are birthing, what I want to birth at Christmas. So, my Christmas wish is to become a gypsy woman. Norman Vincent Peale laughed himself to well-being, to health, and to perfection physically. I believe we can do the same with whatever mountain is before us. So Jesus wrote the joy of forgiveness. He wrote the joy of faith and positive thinking. And I believe he also could have written the book, The Joy of Prayer, The Joy of Meditation, The Joy of Sabbath. Before every single one of these supposed miracles, and whether or not these miracles happened or didn't happen, whether or not this Christmas story happened this way at this time is really insignificant to me. That's a waste of my energy and time to argue whether it happened the way it did. But before every one of the miracles as documented by the Bible, he went and did one thing first. What was that? He went away. He went away to pray, to be, and to be alone. And I think in our Western culture, we have really mistakenly equated being alone with being lonely. But let me tell you, there is a joy in being alone that perhaps we can look, if that's the mindset you have, I want to challenge you to be alone this holiday season at some point and to recognize that it is the least lonely place on the planet. Because it is in the stillness, it is in the quiet that you begin to recognize that you are one with all people. That the presence of God is right there with you and that you are not alone. And I think sometimes the Christmas machine is what causes us to be alone because we're not fully present to who we are. We're so caught up and grounded to the human world and the busyness and the doing that we feel very alone. I challenge you to give birth and to make room for a birthing of something magnificent in your life by closing the door and going to the secret place of the Most High, the sacred sanctuary of your own heart, and just turn off the machine here, turn off this machine, and begin to listen at a deeper, deeper place. You know, the Christ is not going to be born with a parade. It's not going to be a marching band. It's going to be very, very humble. The stable, a manger surrounded by animals, is an outpicturing of the next book I believe he could have written was The Joy of Humility. Stillness, quiet, alone time, and humility. Never once did this man that we celebrate say, worship me. Not one time can I find, and I've read the book a couple of times, did he say, worship me. What did he say? Follow me. Here is an example. Follow it. And I believe he had joy in that. I believe he skipped around when he saw life transformed. I believe he got great pleasure in seeing somebody awaken to a new reality, to a Christed awareness, a Christed reality, just a little bit at a time. I believe he had joy. What did he tell us? Humble yourselves as little children. In the Sermon on the Mount, he said, blessed are the meek, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Everywhere this man went, he rode on a donkey. Now, donkeys are not the most majestic, regal animals on the planet, are they? He wasn't riding in on a white steed or a beautiful big mare. He was riding in on a donkey. I think donkeys are beautiful because they are some of the most sure-footed animals on the planet. It's thought through. It's methodical. I place one foot and I place another, and I keep moving forward. The humbleness of a donkey will win the race. The humbleness of a donkey will allow something to be born. And riding in on a white steed saying, look at me with a spotlight, isn't going to do it. Perhaps we can humble ourselves. I remember the moment when as a child, I hope you do too as well, when it became much more powerful to give a gift than to receive a gift. He washed the feet of his disciples with an understanding that his experience of life, of love, of joy, and goodness would come as being a servant. Perhaps we can make room for a greater experience of heaven on earth by being a servant to each other. The least shall be the first shall be the last. He said those that take the lowest position will reach the highest position. Let us humble ourselves, get still and quiet, and allow something to be born organically instead of trying to force the cocoon open, instead of trying to push the chicken out of the egg, to push the Christ out of who we are at Christmas. Let us simply turn off the machine and be. And the last but not least book that I think he could have written would have been The Joy of Being an Individual. I mentioned earlier that a minister introduced me to this real person. And when I was introduced to Jesus the human, Jesus the man, suddenly he became real to me. A man who was angry, who cried, who was afraid, who had joy. But he was an individual. Let me tell you one thing. He was a maverick. I love that about him. Jesus was a rebel. He was not a softy. What you saw is what you get. When he walked into the room, he spoke his truth. He spoke it in love, but he didn't care what you thought. He was free of the good opinion of anybody else in the room. Somebody told me that when I got into ministry, they said, you better get some thicker skin, and you better free yourself of the good opinion of anybody. Because it's going to come, good opinions and bad opinions. Can I be stable and connected and grounded to who I am as an individual, regardless if they want to crucify me and kill me or they want to worship me? That would be my wife on this side. The reality is, yes, I can find joy no matter how you show up on the planet, because I am who I am. I have a granddaughter who is a Christed being. She can put together any combination of colors, textures, and patterns on her clothes. And some of the stuff she comes out with, humanly you go, well, that's interesting. Yet somehow she pulls it off. She's right over there. That's Savannah. I don't know what you're wearing today. I hope it's really cool to make the point. She comes out, and it makes no sense from my conservative Virgo approach to how you're supposed to look. But yet she pulls it off. Why is that she pulls it off? She's like a fashionista. She's like my minister. She pulls it off because she is confident in who she is. And I will not make excuses for what anybody thinks about the way I show up in my majesty, in my glory. Polka dots and stripes and plaids, all in the same outfit, and man, do I feel good. She pulls it off because she is a Christed being, aware of her magnificence, her unique expression of God, and she does it with confidence, with love for that, and she makes no excuses. Jesus made no excuses for who he was. Perhaps we can make room for a greater awareness of heaven on earth by stopping to make excuses and just be who you want to be. Being a grandfather is my, where'd that come from? Greatest pleasure on the planet. And you don't get to see it very often, but I'm a goofy, silly guy. My father taught me that. I love to be goofy. And I'm in a suit today because Sylvia Hopper wants me to look good. But let me tell you, this is who I truly am. This is me. And I don't make excuses that I like being goofy and silly. I like looking good, but I can look good with a hat like this on. There's a song from the Cajafo that is, I want you all to sing this Christmas. It's not a holiday carol, but it goes like this. I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or an ovation. I will be an individual. I will follow the example of the Christ and live as the person I was created to be, in the image and after the likeness of light, of perfection, of plaids, of polka dots and stripes. I will follow the example of Savannah and be an individual. I will follow the example of Sonia and find joy and bliss and happiness in the midst of not knowing. Let us all give birth to the Christ by finding joy in forgiveness, in faith, in positive thinking, in prayer, in humility, and releasing the good opinion of anybody. And in doing so, we will make room for the vast miracle that is Advent, that is Christmas, that is love, peace, joy, that is the Christ of who you are. I wish you all namaste. I hope to see you all tomorrow night. We have a very emotional story that we're going to share, a very beautiful story we're going to share, and I invite you to be here at 5 and 7 tomorrow. Thank you, and namaste.